As we have seen, in the previous units, grassroots urban farming initiatives do not have a single typology. They can be divided according to the services they offer to the community, and according to their function, regardless of their bottom-up or top-down organizational approach. However, their viability and resilience may be directly related to their ability to make a profit, mobilize resources and volunteers, find support from networks, local authorities and local stakeholders, and last but not least, their dependence on funding. It is common that projects who serve functions, such as embellishment, climate change mitigation, health, well-being, culture, leisure and education, are not directly related to profit-making, and rely mainly on the resources available from the community and their participants. They are, however, likely to be highly dependent on funding to sustain their functions. On the other hand, projects that serve functions related to food supply, social integration and community building, can often be related to profit-making, community self-sufficiency, and are less dependent on funding. However, food production and social integration through urban farming practices, particularly in Europe, require legal status and recognition of urban farming initiatives and projects by local authorities and local governance bodies. Access to available material and human resources, funding, as well as the available capital of knowledge, expertise, and experience of participants, plays an important role in the viability and resilience of grassroots urban farming initiatives and projects. At the same time, the attitude of local authorities towards urban farming and grassroots initiatives plays also an important role. But first, we need to analyze in a simple scheme the parties involved, or able to be involved in a collaboration between initiatives, local authorities, and relevant stakeholders, for the creation, implementation, and management of community-based urban farming projects. The kinds of actors involved in urban gardening initiatives and projects in different countries are rather similar. Principal actors can be grouped into three categories. The first are local gardening groups run by local citizens who are either formally organized in associations or informally constituted. They initiate, plan, implement, and maintain gardening projects, either as informal land uses or in cooperation with local administrations. The second group are the officials in charge of the legal regulation of land use. In some cases, political and administrative bodies promote new gardening initiatives by permitting the use of land, by the allocation of public land to associations, or through initiating their own projects. Non-profit associations and private investors may also be involved by providing support, such as information, funds, resources, or by establishing official contacts with the relevant administration. The third group involved are the property owners, as they have to agree to the use of their property for urban agriculture purposes. This scheme presents the relationships between the groups of actors when cooperating in an urban farming project. Relationships between these groups of actors generally vary. In some cases, grassroots movements and citizen associations take the initiative without legal permission, and the municipality is involved afterwards. In some cases, the initiative first asks for the permission of the municipality and the property owner. In other cases, the municipality itself runs the process, or is automatically a partner, because urban farming projects are allocated to land owned by the city. In general, the planning of urban farming projects often escapes the duality of top-down versus bottom-up planning. In most cities there are networks of people and organizations involved in urban agriculture, comprising citizens, companies, and organizations, as well as the municipality and research institutes. There is a variety of different rules issued by different city administrations concerning planning and permissions, land use regulations, and stakeholders' roles and responsibilities across Europe. Local authorities are mainly interested in regulating the terms of use and clarifying responsibilities, rights, and obligations. Therefore, they often sign contracts and agreements with grassroots associations, or individual gardeners, such as leasing contracts, contracts for maintenance or formal sponsorships, or even informal leases. From this scheme of relationships, we can get an idea of why permissions, legal recognition, and local authorities' attitude towards grassroots initiative plays an important role in urban farming projects' viability and resilience. the lack of policies and planning for grassroots urban farming initiatives and projects, and the fact that their role and importance are usually not considered by urban planners, have made urban farming projects the most endangered green space category. Urban agriculture is also seldom used as a cross-sectoral field of action by local stakeholders. Nowadays, there is a significant disconnection between the drivers and organizers of urban farming initiatives and the regulators of urban agriculture in modern cities. Some studies show that the lack of formal support has led urban agriculture towards a bottom-up process, with initiatives being created by citizens associations, or NGOs, rather than by the initiative of local governments and urban planners. Even though there are very few studies on the role of local authorities and stakeholders in the resilience and viability of urban farming projects, some studies showed that local and central government play a role in the legitimization and institutionalization of urban agriculture, through the facilitation of multi-stakeholder processes, policy development, as well as the conservation and allocation of land. Overall, in the urban environment, laws, rules, procedures, and urban planning are elements controlled by local governments that can prevent or promote urban agriculture activities. The provision of material resources, infrastructure, and financing, as well as land use permits, the provision of technical knowledge and expertise, are resources useful for the resilience, viability and success of any urban farming project. However, the benefits of the involvement of local authorities and stakeholders do not stop at the provision of resources, but extend to the whole scheme of cooperation, planning, implementation, and management of a project. The cooperation between grassroots urban farming initiatives, local authorities, and stakeholders, in the planning and implementation of a project, is often called participatory planning and development. This cooperation, as well as the open evaluation process of a project, gives the opportunity to both residents and stakeholders to evaluate and give valuable input and feedback on the progress of the project, and to make adjustments where necessary. Furthermore, citizens' participation, and taking into consideration their opinion, maximizes the legitimacy of the process, and ensures that a project is created with the needs, consent, participation, and opinion of citizens at its core. At the same time, the participatory implementation allows different interest groups and social groups, even vulnerable or marginalized ones, to express their needs and wishes. Citizens' consent and inclusive cooperation with local authorities or relevant stakeholders create good conditions for both the viability and resilience of a project, through the mobilization of human resources and the material support it may receive, in terms of infrastructure or funding. Participatory planning and implementation can give citizens access to decision-making for a project. It is not always certain that this will happen, as it depends on the attitude of local authorities and stakeholders towards citizens, urban agriculture, and the process of participation in decision-making. In any case, the political tradition, political culture, and the history of a city play a key role. However, in many cases, the participation of citizens and whole communities in decision-making has proved to be of great importance for the transparency, viability, and resilience of the project, as citizens share with the official bodies the responsibility for the sustainability of the results, and make the best use of both their human resources and their existing knowledge and experience. The participation and involvement of local authorities and local stakeholders lead to greater public transparency and establishes the legitimacy of a project. The greater the legitimacy of a project partner, the greater the legitimacy of a project. On the other hand, the legitimacy of a project reduces the risk of being outlawed and blocked by the authorities. After all, this is a major problem for many urban farming projects based on grassroots initiatives, especially in cities and regions, where local governments and urban planners do not have a friendly attitude towards community initiatives. Several projects in Europe have been stopped or disbanded by local authorities or government decisions because they lacked legal recognition. Furthermore, working with local governments allows the use of new models of co-decision and co-management in the local community. These benefits authorities, as citizens become more willing to participate in governance and understand the processes behind policy applications. researchers have underlined that institutional support is an important aspect in the further promotion of urban agriculture and local food systems. Some researchers have also highlighted that top-down efforts might work best to improve the coordination of urban agriculture activities and to maximize the multifunctional benefits of urban farming projects. However, according to other researchers, we should not overlook the fact that the promotion and support of urban agriculture should not only be a top-down process, where the municipality or local authorities will necessarily exercise control and power over urban farming projects developed by grassroots initiatives. A bottom-up approach is equally important, as research shows. Local authorities and local stakeholders should encourage bottom-up participation. They can facilitate the processes of a grassroots urban farming project by providing free or low-cost services for a short or long period of time, or access to water supply and other infrastructure. Caution is required, because the interference of local authorities can harm grassroots initiatives and their efforts. It would be advisable not to exercise absolute authority, or to exclude local initiatives from planning and decision-making. In any case, grassroots involvement is an important driver of change, and will continue to be, especially when urban agriculture is not deemed as appropriate urban land use. If the bottom-up initiatives of urban agriculture are not supported, both the local communities and the local stakeholders and authorities risk losing the source interest of citizens, as well as their sense of acceptance, their motivation, and will to take action. Lack of acceptance or interest from the community, and non-mobilization of citizens, can deprive an urban farming project of its momentum and public legitimacy in the eyes of the community, leading projects that do not receive community support to decline, despite their financial support by the city. The urban vegetable gardens of the Aristotle University in Thessaloniki is a project aimed at bridging the gap between the scientific and local community, while reconnecting people to land and growing food using only biological methods. The project started in 2012 and has been on for 9 years with success. The rectorial authorities of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, and the Faculty of Agriculture, created educational vegetable gardens, for the cultivation of winter and summer vegetables, in the area of the Aristotle University farm. These gardens are available to citizens who cultivate them, in order to train them in the technique of vegetable cultivation, and the production of agricultural products for family use. The area of each vegetable garden is 100 square meters, and the cost of participation in the program is €120 per year, with the right to stay on the plot for up to 3 years. Today, 450 vegetable gardens are active in the university's farm. The income generated is allocated to the farm fund, and is used exclusively for the operational needs of the gardens, the expansion of the program, the improvement of the services provided, and the education of the students. The practice can be considered a success. Around 450 families every year, that's about 2,000 people, produce their own vegetables, and learn how to grow their own food with organic farming. As a result, a handful of once hobby farmers have now even become professional farmers, who grow organic vegetables in their own fields. This is a good example of cooperation between a public university and citizens in an urban farming project. Until November 2011, this area of 4,500 square meters, on the riverbank of Danube, in Vienna, was a meadow, like any other on Kaiser-Mühlen Dam. However, citizens, mainly neighbors of the 22nd district, wanted to use this land to create an urban garden and cultivate vegetables and herbs. The citizens formed an association. Since the garden was on public land, the association had to discuss and cooperate with municipal authorities. The citizens' initiative clarified ownership, negotiated a lease with the municipal authorities, and applied for funding. The garden managed to get a lease and funding, with the support of various municipal departments. It was a win-win situation for everyone. The city of Vienna does not have to take care of the maintenance of the leased area, the gardeners enjoy the tasty vegetables, and their daily trip to their own little paradise, with a lot of communication and exchange on a professional basis. Today, about 80 gardeners are active in this garden, and each gardener has a 20 square meters plot. In addition, there is community work, such as mowing the lawn, sifting compost, or taking care of the community beds. One of the most important parts of this project was community building and bridging between the residents of Alt-Kaisermühlen and the Donau city. A community garden, named Garden for All, was created on Ober Donaustrasse, near Danube's riverbank, in the city of Linz. For this purpose, a women's initiative was founded, with the goal to connect the people in the district with one another, through enthusiasm for gardening. Passing on the joy of working in and with nature, and creating awareness of the origin of our food. This community garden was established in 2013, with the support of municipal authorities, and the head of City Gardens of Linz. An initiative called Garden for All was founded, consisting of committed, and interested garden lovers, who presented a concept for the garden design to the local authorities, and participated in the final planning phase. Local authorities expressed great interest in the plan, and experts provided feedback and made changes in the initiative's plan. The city agreed to cooperate, offered a lease for the garden, and many of the proposed changes were implemented by the initiative. Today, the garden has cherry trees, which have been supplemented with small crowned fruit trees, and fruit bushes. There are 4 raised beds that transform this garden into a lively kitchen garden.
This is an old train track, and I think I saw a train at sort of 97, so it's sort of 20 years ago. No one is using it, so it's really a big piece of land that is right in the middle of Stockholm that is not used. The first of 3 people, and essentially it was Philip. He was looking down and he saw this empty space, and he started to wonder, why is this? Why is not anyone using it? They managed to lease it. That's how it started, and quite quickly it became a big news because this was the first urban gardening initiative, and they were quite good at marketing it, I would say. The initiative kicked off really quick. This is a garden where we share everything. When you become a member, you don't get your own box. And the good thing is, if it's vacation and you're away, someone else, hopefully, is there to water. In the beginning of the season, we try to formulate what do we want to garden, and usually it's all different crazy ideas. And over the years we have understood maybe what is working and what is not working. We try to grow a lot of salads, a lot of herbs that typically is very easy to pick, and you can't really pick everything. We usually say that our garden is not for professionals. This is for learning. So we had 4 different preschools that got their own boxes, so they had got 10 boxes each. We went to the schools and we had an hour with them to explain this is soil and this is seeds, and they planted in the classrooms. And then a month later or so they came down and they could plant it and they could come down and water.
What we do here is in many ways a lot more social, a lot more about sort of a greater community, inviting people in. But I think it's nice because everyone sort of finds their spot, and I think everyone learns something, even if you're here just for a few hours or if you're here for an entire season.
I thought it's a good start to just to join some people in a group and change something in some spaces that are like abandoned. So it's very easy to get in contact, and everyone is really open. I like that a lot.
And connecting people is one, but I think the other one is get people back into what it is to actually, where does our food come from?
Maybe today we miss the relationship to soil and food, and that's a way to put my hands into the soil and to see everything growing like this is really interesting. So it's all about this social part and then the agriculture and food part.
Since the city of Stockholm is growing at such a tremendous rate, public space is in a sense becoming more scarce, or we have to share it between more and more people. So I think there's sort of an interesting dynamic that's going on in Stockholm. A major issue is that the fact that it is public land that we're on. And so I think it's extremely important in that the land is open to the public, in that it's not privatized. It needs to be for everyone. So I think that's sort of a major issue to deal with. How do we create a garden that, that we have a responsibility for, but at the same time it's really open to the public, so it's more like a park than a private garden. I think my favorite part is just when we really sort of have this mix of growing food and also having people come in from the community and sharing this space with us. We really had sort of this mix between the sort of the ecological and the social and growing vegetables and community. That would be my favorite part.
In 2019, the Prinzessinnen Garden Collective moved from the area of Kreuzberg in Berlin, and created a new form of community garden, at the new street Jacobi Friedhofs Cemetery. With an area of 7.5 hectares, this new urban community garden is located in the middle of a natural area that has grown over 100 years. The site belongs to the Protestant Cemetery Association of Berlin Stadtmitte. The Urban Garden Collective, after discussions with the municipality and the Cemetery Association, reached a usage agreement that allows them to use the empty cemetery areas for their activities until 2035. Every season, up to 1,000 volunteers support this community garden as part of the weekly garden days. These people come from the neighborhood, but also from other parts of the city. There are families, pensioners, young people, people who have always lived in Berlin, and people who have just moved to Berlin. People approach the garden with different motivations, to learn about growing organic food, to practice gardening, or to find social interaction. Only organic methods of cultivation are used. A community garden restaurant serving meals cooked with fresh vegetables also operates in the garden. There are no private beds in this garden. All volunteers help build and maintain the entire garden, and the vegetables produced are available to the people who take part in the gardening days. Part of the vegetables produced also goes to the community gardens restaurant, or to nearby restaurants, and helps finance the garden. In 2015, the NatureX Foundation, with the help of volunteers, created a community garden called Il Rastrello in Milan. This garden not only supports the professional integration of people with disabilities, but also their personal development. The garden started on an empty field. After 4 years of work, it is now equipped with a tool shelter, an irrigation system, a vegetable and fruit yard, as well as a hen house, amongst other things. The garden is managed, on a rotating, by people suffering from various types of mental disabilities, helping around 80 people get access to a professional activity. The freshly harvested products are distributed to the local community and surrounding villages. Local schools also get to visit the garden, as part of pedagogic activities, aiming at raising awareness about people suffering from disabilities. NatureX volunteers make sure to give a bit of their time by participating in gardening days. This project was supported by the NatureX Foundation until 2019, and taken over by the Givaudan Foundation, ensuring its continuity since 2020. This is a good example of NGOs and stakeholders supporting therapeutic urban farming projects in Italy. Without the stakeholders' support, this project could not be implemented or operated until today. The therein transition group started through a series of meetings, where some varieties of seeds and ideas were exchanged. The group started by holding a series of talks and seed exchange fairs, where people were invited to bring along the varieties to trade. They have now held 13 of these exchanges, where people are encouraged to communicate in Bernese with older people who still speak it, to help out. therein transition created Locasau Garden, on a 3,000 square meter site of a former railway station, on land made available by the municipality with a special lease, offering support to the initiative. Activists have set up 30 old wooden containers, and grow a range of local and unusual varieties of fruit and vegetables. The water comes from the roof of the old train station. The garden uses organic methods, crop rotation and mulching. 4 of the flower beds are grown by a local school for hyperactive children. A school that offers vocational training for young people with special needs also grows vegetables in the garden.